I was hoping, I don't see Tim Orozco or Sandy McClinton but we'll go ahead and start the meeting, and at least get some of the business out of the way, and hopefully they'll show up. It's just a couple of minutes after 7. So we'll call the meeting to order. The minutes were sent out. Anybody has any questions? Our last meeting was the forum for the Santa Clara County Supervisor's position. So Otto Lee and, hi Ron, Otto Lee and Kenson Chu. So we didn't put all the questions in or anything, so it is recorded. You can go to our website and look into that if you want to check it. So I'm just going to assume those minutes are okay. We have, let's see, the treasurer's report. Susan, you're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have the treasurer's report for September 2020. Our beginning balance on September 1st was $3,692.47. We had an income of $50, which were the 2 donations for the candidate forum, one from NSCVRA and the other one from River Oaks Neighborhood Association. We had no expenses, so the ending balance on September 30th was $3,742.47 for the Beautify San Jose Grant Cycle 3, 2021. The beginning balance on September 1st was $5,000 and there are no expenses. The ending balance September 30th, 2020 is $5,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, no Tim yet. Nobody else. Where are all our people today?
They're watching football.
They're playing hooky.
Huh?
They're playing hooky.
They
They're
are.
watching football, probably.
That's true. The football game's on, the baseball game's on, the Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves, and then the New Orleans Saints are playing.
I just want to give you an excuse.
Yeah. I tell you, yesterday we watched baseball, basketball, and football all day long. That's what was going on. I thought, how in the world? Oh my goodness. The brain gets saturated. Anyway, well, I'll let Captain Taw speak, see if he's got anything exciting to tell us about Berryessa.
Thank you, Linda, for inviting me, and thanks for setting this up. I kind of miss these physical meetings, but I've really started to like some of these Zooms. So thank you again for inviting me. What I wanted to do, just real quick, because I know it's going to be really, really quick, but this has been very helpful. If I could share my screen, I'm going to show you guys how to pull up crime reports in your neighborhood.
Oh.
And I don't know if I can share my screen. I'm going to try it. I'm not very good yet at Zoom, but let me give it a shot here. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
There it is. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start with sjpd.org. This is going to be really super quick, but I think it's very helpful. So when I go to sjpd.org, it comes up with this main screen. You can kind of just read it and then close it. And then in the center of the screen, there's a crime stats and maps. You can hover on that, go down to crimemapping.com, click on there, click on view crime maps in my neighborhood. Agree to the terms after you read it, of course. It'll bring you to this screen. This is kind of an overall city view of crime reports in our city. You can kind of see up on the very top here, 662 crime reports. I believe this is for a period of 1 week. So that's citywide. I'm going to go over here to this icon that says where. And I'm just going to put in, I'm going to put in the Berryessa Community Center address, but you guys can use whatever address you want. So I'm going to put in Berryessa Road Community Center. It's defaulted right here at 1/2 mile radius. You can also change that, but just for this example, I'm going to keep it at default, and I'm going to hit apply. Once I do that, you can kind of see that there's a circle around the 1/2 mile radius, and then
Yeah.
it gives you kind of an icon. So what this icon is it shows one crime report within a previous 1 week time duration. So I'm going to expand that a little bit because you guys have a very nice neighborhood. There was only one crime report in a whole week. So I'm going to expand that to 1 month. And you can change that if you want to go to custom time frame. You can change that to whatever you desire, but I'm going to just stick with 1 month. And as you can see, once I expanded to 1 month, it popped up other icons. So these icons, they all kind of mean something. You can click on this icon and it'll show you kind of a synopsis on the side. You can see that this is a vandalism.
Oh, yeah.
You can see the date that this occurred, 9/23. You can see the time at close to 6 p.m. But most importantly, right here, you can see what we call a case number, incident number. So the way that you read this case number or incident number is the first 2 digits are the year, which is 2020. These 3 digits here indicate a Julian date. So Julian date of January 1 is 001, and Julian date of December 31st is usually 365, just so you can get a reference. And this is the 567th incident that we dealt with that day, just so you know how that kind of works itself out. And you can click on these other icons just to kind of get an idea of what's happening in the area. So right here, I'm going to click on this one. I happen to know what this is. It's drugs and alcohol. So you can see the date, you can see the time, 4 a.m., and you can see the descriptions, narcotic offense, and a case number. So what this tells me is that this is more than likely a proactive case where an officer probably either stopped somebody or somehow came across an incident and determined that drugs or alcohol violations were occurring. Perhaps they were in possession of it or under the influence, probably made an arrest and created a crime report. If you go over here to the bottom left, you can look at it in different ways instead of just that visual. You can look at, I clicked on this chart so you can kind of see it, more of a Excel spreadsheet type of a format. If that's more understandable, you can come back here and look at this other chart here, and you can look at it as a pie chart. So you can kind of, if there were a lot of different crime reports, it would kind of break it down for you down at the bottom here in a pie chart format. And then these color codes correspond with the days of the week up above. So you can kind of see, okay, this vehicle break-in happened on a Sunday. You know, this disturbance of the peace happened on a Thursday. As you look at this, more of a long-term kind of a trend, you can kind of start seeing things that are trending. So I wanted to just show you guys that real quick. What I want to do, what I want to kind of caution you guys is, this is crime reports. These are not calls for service. So there's a difference. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now. I'm just go back to normal. Does anybody have any questions before I stop sharing this screen? Okay, I'm going to go back to normal. So that program is only for crime reports. So we have, we go to a lot of different calls where we help the community, 911 calls, 311 calls. If it doesn't result in a crime report, then it doesn't show up in this map. So for example, if we were to go to a family disturbance and it turns out that we could resolve the matter with some just some counseling and just separate the parties. They were just kind of heated, but no crime actually occurred. that would not show up on the crimereports.com website. Same thing with, let's say, a music disturbance where somebody called in and complained about a neighbor that was playing music too loud. We went out there, spoke to them, and they turned the music off. That would not show up on a crime report map. So there are a lot of other activities that San Jose officers are involved in that don't end up in a crime report. So I just wanted to show you guys that. You guys can play around with that. What's nice is when we have future meetings, if you look up some things and you say, hey, that's kind of an interesting case right there, I'd like to maybe talk about that in more detail. You know, if you guys let me know ahead of time, of course, I can look into it, and then we could have a discussion on it, you know, and that way I don't have to get back to you. It's a little bit more efficient that way. All right, so I'm going to give you guys just a kind of a quick overview of the area. We look at certain crime types, some of the more heavy duty crime types, robberies, assaults that result in serious injury, and we look at burglaries. So right now we're seeing a little bit of strong arm robberies increasing. So what that means is it could be two things. It could be where somebody gets confronted by a bad person and they push them down and they steal their necklace or they steal their bracelet. So that's an example of a strong arm robbery. Another one would be a robbery where people go into a store and they commit a theft. And as they're leaving the store, loss prevention or somebody tries to intervene, and then that theft turns into a struggle, and then that would be classified also as a robbery. So those are the two kind of robbery definitions that we see most often. Last year we had a record of 5 for August of 2019. We saw 13 this August. So it's trending upward a little bit. So just be vigilant when you guys are out and about at either at a store or just walking out and about. Just be aware of your surroundings. The second crime type that I want to talk about is aggravated assaults. So these assaults are aggravated in the sense that there are injuries involved. So that is kind of flat. We had 15 this August compared to 15 last August. But what I want to mention is that not specifically in this area, but citywide, I'm seeing more domestic kind of assaults increase a little bit. I think it's due to the shelter in place. I'm seeing more landlord-tenant disputes because of rent and the inability to really collect that rent with evictions. And I do see other kind of debt-related assaults. Somebody owes somebody money, and it turns into an assault. So just be aware of that. A lot of those are very difficult for us on a uniform level to try to address because they do happen inside the house. So we just basically we have to react to it when it does occur. The last one is burglaries. So this is trending downward. As you guys know, a lot of people are working from home still. And so burglars don't really want to break into a house or a business that's occupied. So we are actually seeing a very positive trend with burglaries. It looks like we had 16 last year in August of 2019. We had 7 this year. So negative 56% or a decrease of 56%. Citywide trends that I see, we see a lot more speeding type of incidences that kind of erupt into sideshows. This is very difficult for us to deal with because it really is happening constantly. What happens is a group of people, they congregate, and if they get a lot of numbers, then they end up going somewhere else. So for example, they'll meet at one place and they'll say, hey, go to this certain intersection, and then they jump over there. And it's very hard for us to figure out, you know, we have some ways of figuring it out, but it's hard for us to figure out where they're going. Once we do know, though, we try to have officers stationed at the areas of the city we know are most commonly used, and we try to disrupt that activity. So we end up chasing them around a lot. And if we're successful, you guys never see or hear anything of it. These are for the larger sideshows, but for some of the smaller ones, we are seeing people just spinning donuts it happens very, very quickly, and then 2, 3, 5 minutes, they're gone. So that's really hard for us to try to react to it, particularly when it's happening on the weekends when call volume is the highest. The other thing I'm seeing that's kind of trending upward is homeless related concerns. You guys know that the homeless response team right now is still down because of the virus. And so I'm hoping that they come online really soon. But in the meantime, I've been able to use some of my teams to mitigate some of these issues. And then just so you guys are aware, we still have about 3 or 4 protests every week. Most of them, if not all of them, are peaceful, which is great. We do, though, have a contingency of officers, depending upon the size of the protests, ready to go. So how that affects you guys in the community is, for example, if we have a larger protest, we may have 20 officers kind of dedicated, ready to go to react, to make sure that if it does turn non-peaceful or it becomes violent, we have to be able to respond immediately. So as a result of that, some of the call volumes that we experience, particularly on the weekends, are delayed. So that kind of concludes my presentation for you guys today. Can I answer any questions you guys may have?
Yes, Linda, Richard Santos, may I ask a question?
Yes, yes, Shirley.
Captain, thank you for your report. And I know your job is very difficult, and everybody wants something from the PD. Hope you're all healthy and stay safe. But up here in
Thank you.
Sierra, the other day we had a kind of a community meeting. I believe you were on it, along with the sheriff's department, CHP. I can just tell you this: we're got my house all week, look outside and so on. We just don't have sheriff, CHP, or yourselves up here in Sierra Road. And I understand priorities are priorities, but the traffic, and especially 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. is getting to be pretty reckless. I've had landscaping rocks all in front of my place. They're smashed continually, and I'm safe and I'm blessed. But my neighbors coming out of the driveways, mailboxes hit, and traffic is pretty difficult. So whatever you can do, keep us in mind. And thank you for meeting with us that day. I appreciate it.
No, we actually have a couple of different strategies that I'm going to try to roll out. And as you know from those meetings, it's tricky. You know, everybody really wants more enforcement, and I do as well. But enforcement is just simply that. You know, it kind of stops the behavior when the enforcements happen, and then the behavior comes right back. So we are looking for a little bit longer term, strategies to use out there. But I do have something in the wings for enforcement for both Sierra as well as Suncrest. So I do appreciate your support, and hopefully we can kind of make things better in the short term.
Well, thank you for calling us. Whatever we can do, let us know. We'll be glad to help.
I certainly will.
Thank
So
you.
we actually have 3 people that raised their hand. I guess
Okay.
indicates they want to ask a question, and we also have an anonymous question in the question and answer section. How do you want to handle that?
Well, let's take them in order. I can't see
All right.
anybody. Yeah. So if you see him,
So
go.
somebody labeled Mike Flower, I'm going to allow to talk, and then you can ask your question.
Oh,
I
Mike.
think I can see the first one. I'll read this first one out. If you guys want to do it in different order, just let me know. It says, how does San Jose PD decide where a DUI checkpoint is going to be stationed? Could we request one for Suncrest Road and Bay Laurel Drive? That's a very good question. It's anonymous, so I'm not sure who asked it. So DUI checkpoints are dual purpose. They are for suspected DUI drivers as well as driver's license checkpoint. This is funded through the Office of Transportation Safety, OTS, and it's a grant funded program. There are very specific rules for where DUI checkpoints are established and when they are established in terms of day of the week, in terms of hours of the day. So all of that data is really, it's not just kind of randomly put somewhere. It is actually, we look at crash data for DUI crashes, we look at DUI arrests, we look at call volume, or even street kind of volume on the roadway. So all of those factors come into play. So I don't think, I'm hoping I'm understanding the question correctly. I don't think that they can just be put up just anywhere. So if Suncrest, for example, has a high amount of DUIs on that street per capita, or DUI related incidences on that street, then it would probably be somewhere where, you know, the grant criteria would allow us to put it there. There's also other limitations with the size of the roadway and some other, you know, some other logistical variables. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you.
I don't see the other two questions. If somebody could just maybe relay.
Hello, this is Mike Flaucher.
Right.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, just wanted to ask the captain something. About a week ago, I had my car burglarized in my complex. And one of the things, other than some small things like sunglasses and whatnot that they took the registration for the vehicle. And that opens up a whole list of potential things. Could you speak to that and what possible crimes may come out of stealing a registration? Because you get typically the address of the person, and then you could have things happen there. But also you have the potential of later on having them come back and take the car, and now they have registration and the car and the license plates on it that all match up.
Yeah, it's a good question, Mike. I'm sorry to hear that happened to you. I think what we're seeing a lot throughout the city is what I call people that just jiggle doorknobs. They jiggle handles on cars, they jiggle doors on houses. So a lot of this, in my experience, has been a crime of opportunity. So hopefully for you guys, if you do park your car out in the open outside of the garage, you just make sure that you lock your doors. I do see a lot of incidences where when the car doors are open, of course, they rummage through the car and they take whatever valuables they take. But there are also a lot of people that leave their garage door openers inside their visor. So just be aware of that I've seen where they use that garage door opener to open your garage and they take items out of your garage. But more importantly, if they do have the ability to enter your garage, many people don't lock the door separating the garage from their house. So if you are one of those folks that don't do that and you do leave a garage door opener out in a car, just understand that they can break that window very easily, open that garage, and they may have full access to your house. With regard to the registration, most of the time when officers stop somebody, whether for a traffic infraction or something that has to do with the vehicle, we run the vehicle through the DMV database. So we will know who the registered owner of that car is, with or without the paperwork that you may or may not have in the car. So in a scenario where somebody has paperwork, let's say for a car, if he's using it for some sort of nefarious reason, where let's say perhaps he owns a car very similar to your car and he tries to use that paperwork fictitiously, we should know. We would match up not only the license plate with the VIN number. So I'm not sure what the purpose of that, stealing that paperwork, would do for that person. So you know, my professional recommendation is, of course, you're required to have that paperwork in your car, but you know, a lot of people, they redact it. So let's say on your paperwork, you just kind of black out the address and then you make a photocopy of that so you can't hold it up to the light and see the address. I mean, that is one way to somewhat protect yourself. Officers don't really need the address because, like I said, we can run the car through our database and figure out, you know, who owns the car, where you guys live, and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was also using a methodology. When it's parked, it isn't in the actual vehicle. And when I when I come out and use it, I bring the registration with me and put it in the glove box before I take it anywhere.
And if you guys have a car with a trunk, what I always recommend to folks is if you have valuable items, whether you leave it overnight or whether you're just going to a store, put those items in your trunk. Number one, they should not be, of course, just in plain sight on your seat. You know, I see a lot of people just leave gym bags. They leave things that they don't think somebody would break into your car and take. But I've seen a lot of homeless people need clothing. They need shoes. They need all kinds of gym equipment. So whatever you have, put it in your trunk, because that is really secure. And most cars, you're not able to open that trunk unless you have the key. If you have an SUV, that's a little bit trickier. I would recommend that you take whatever valuables you have inside the house overnight. And again, even though it's not a secure compartment, put it in the back so that way it's kind of out of visual sight.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did we have one more? We need to move along. So did we have one more question?
Yes, hi, this is Jay Srinivasan. I have a very quick question for Captain Tuff.
Hello, Jay.
Thank you. Hi, how are you, Captain Tuff? Thank you for being here. So very quick questions. Some of the, you spoke about homelessness. Past few days, some of the, my neighbors have complained about few of the homeless folks approaching them aggressively in a shopping center. So I was wondering whether it would be possible to increase some patrol in some hotspots, whether are homeless encampments. Is it okay for me to reach out to you with those details?
Yeah, can you just, if you have the location, can you just provide it here? Can you just tell me verbally?
Yes, it is the Lucky's on Capitol Avenue and near 680. Okay.
We have kind of a larger homeless encampment right near there. I'm sure you know
Yes.
which one I'm referring to. So the only tricky part about homeless in a what we would deem as a private property but open to the public. So years ago, I'm going to date myself a little bit, we had this ordinance or actually law that did not allow for loitering. I don't know if you guys ever heard the term, but loitering is and has been deemed unconstitutional. So any areas that are, even though they're privately owned, let's say Lucky's owns that entire area, but if it's open to the public, that is pretty much public access. So it's a little tricky for us to enforce some of those type of loitering type of behavior, even aggressive panhandling. If it doesn't rise to the level of assault, we really cannot make an arrest. But in my experience with homeless people, they don't want any problems from the police. If you kind of just let me know when things kind of peak up a little bit, we'll do our best to send officers out there. And usually when we contact them, they're pretty respectful.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think we have to move along, but thank you so much, Captain Taw, for coming tonight. We
Thank you,
appreciate it.
guys. If you guys have anything else, so just play around with that crime reports.com and shoot me an email, or you got my phone number too, Linda. So just shoot me a call and let me know, and I will get back to you guys as soon as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Have a great night.
All right, we'll do some updates. Did Tim Orozco come tonight? Yeah, I don't know who's here and who isn't. Sandra? I know Richard's here. We'll go to Richard. Do you have a report tonight?
Yes, thank you, Linda. Real quickly, I want to first of all thank all the Berryessa neighborhood and my district. I had an opponent, and anyway, all your support. The person dropped out, and so I'll be back here for another 4 years, which I enjoy doing. Unfortunately, AB 3005 to expedite Anderson Dam, all the regulatory and different restrictions we had, Governor Newsom vetoed that. So we go back to the drawing board, and everybody's working very hard at it. We're emptying water out into Coyote so we keep the fish going and reduce the water at this time. We're having cleanups. Homeless is a continued issue. We just had a joint cleanup with the city of San Jose about a month and a half ago. with no PD on the scene. It was the kind of an experiment, and it seemed to work pretty good. So we're going to continue hoping people's behaviors will be more receptive and work together and clean up the creeks. And we're going at it. We're keeping our employees working. We haven't had any layoffs. We've had C-19 tests and so on. I've been included, and everything is going well. We had a few members that had it, but overall 840 employees. We keep the water rates the same. We voted not to increase anything. Work with everybody. We'll continue with our budget. We'll continue. And as you know, 724, you open your faucet, you get water. And there it is. Any questions, call me offline. My number's there all the time.
Thank you.
You're
That's great.
welcome.
Linda,
Thank you, Linda.
and a quick comment
Yes.
from Ty.
Oh,
I tried to reach out to Tim Orozco by phone, left a voice message. I don't have Sandra Clinton's number, so I couldn't reach out to her, but neither of them are.
They should, you know, Sandra, that she is in the email rosters that we have. But it doesn't say Sandra McClinton. Her name says Sandra McClinton, but then her email is totally different. So,
I'll check and see.
okay, I'll talk to you about.
Linda, the last thing, please support Measure S. That's a continuation with the partial funding. If we're going to address the homeless and all the issues, and we're going to have less money from the state and federal government, we need to continue having Measure S passed. Thank you.
Dr. Fuentes, did you want to give a BUSD report? I forgot to put you in there, but
Sure. Thank you very much. Good
Yeah.
evening, everyone. It's great to see all of you. This certainly has been a very busy and challenging time for the school district dealing with schooling through distance learning venue. I do want to say, first of all, just a big thank you to our parents and to our staff for really tightening up our distance learning program and providing a more solid structure for student learning as we kicked off this school year. You know, technology is always an issue. It's something you read about, you know, that's challenging for all school districts across the state. And I really, you know, I'm very proud of what we've been able to deliver in Berryessa. We've distributed over 4,000 Chromebooks to students, just over 1,000 hotspots for connectivity. And, you know, we've done this through our Measure U bond for technology. So thank you to our community for supporting us there. And, you know, we were a step ahead in having the infrastructure that we needed to be able to face with a distance learning program. Also, we've been blessed to be a part of several partnerships in the city, including the SJ Access program, which provided 800 free hotspots for our highest needs students in the community. So that was really an outstanding project. In addition to that, just this past month, our school board passed an MOU agreement with the City of San Jose and Eastside Union High School District for a community Wi-Fi project in our Independence High School neighborhood. So really looking forward to that. That'll probably take place next summer. So I'll have more information as we get closer to that development. Also, just a reminder that we continue to offer free meals to anyone 18 and under. We have a meal service Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we're doing double meals each distribution. And so anyone 18 and under can go to any school site and get a free meal through the end of December. So please, you know, highlight that. Currently, we're evaluating, you know, our ability to do in-person student support. It's a challenge trying to cover all of the safety measures as required by the Santa Clara Public Health Department. We're also currently surveying our families and our staff to see what their readiness is as well in terms of being able to return. So, you know, there's one thing to be eligible to open schools. It's another to be able to do so safely and to ensure that everyone has the right mindset to move forward safely, you know, in that capacity. So we're currently in those discussions. And then just lastly, a positive bright note. Many of you may be familiar with Bay Area Parent Magazine, and each year they do a publication, The Best of the Best, across the Bay Area. And a big component of that is education. And so for Silicon Valley area, both Cherrywood Elementary as well as Sierramont Middle School and Eastside Union High School District's Piedmont Hills High School each ranked gold for best public or charter school in Silicon Valley. So really excited, you know, for our Cherrywood community and Sierramont Middle School community. It's a full effort. You know, this ranking recognition is parent driven, community driven, advocating for their local schools. So really excited to see two of Berryessa schools be, you know, getting gold marks, top marks in the publication. So really excited about that. Thank you.
Great. Yay. Thank you. Mike, did you want to give a report on open space or? Mike Flower, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. At this time, I won't because of the question running on there,
Okay,
Captain Ta.
yeah,
But do you see Frank anywhere on the system?
I didn't say, I can't see. There's a lot of people I can't see because it says there's 27 and I see like 10.
Okay, yeah.
So,
I won't run ahead of Frank, but he may have an announcement. If not this time, next time.
okay,
Frank is not on the list of people in the sidelines.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, I didn't put them on this time. Okay. Do we have any, is anybody else here from, like Tim's not here, Sandra? Cortez's office, anybody else I might have forgotten? Okay, well, then I will introduce to you the San Jose Evergreen Community College presentation by Dr. Byron Breland. You're on, sir.
Thank you so much, Linda. I also want to thank the Berryessa Community Advisory for the invitation and of course for your partnership over the years. And I guess what I'm going to do, and I also want to thank, I know who's joining us as well, is our trustee, Rudy Nassau, who's been very involved and engaged with Berryessa over the years, and many of you know him. But we wanted to just kind of run through, well, three things. I'll try to do this as expediently as possible. Just sort of an overview of our district and sort of, you know, what we've been up to. So it'll be kind of a snapshot of our State of the District presentation that was delivered just 2 months ago at our Board of Trustees. The second thing I want to do is sort of give an overview of Milpitas extension project, which Trustee Bruno Saul has been instrumental in launching many years ago, actually, even before I joined the district back in 2013 as the president of San Jose City College, and have since become the chancellor for the district starting in 2018. And so that work is moving on, and even the potential of a vision of something like that happening in Berryessa area in partnership with our district. And then finally, I want to give an overview of two measures that we do have on the ballot, Measure I and Measure J, and also just a thumbs up to the other measures that people have mentioned. I know, and forgive me, I don't remember your name, of Water District, Measure S, I think it was, right? To make sure that we are supporting measures that we know that we're not going to get state funding from. And so we have two measures, I and J. So I'm gonna give a quick overview of that as well. And I'll start with essentially sharing my screen. I'm gonna pull up our State of the District presentation and begin there. And really begin to just kind of talk and remind people, you know, of, who we are as a district, who we serve, and even, you know, a sense of some of the challenges that we've had in listening to Dr. Fuentes and moving to a remote environment, is that it's been a big challenge for us in working with our students. And so, can you all see my screen okay?
Yes.
Is there? Okay. And so, first of all, I'm going to really just do a quick overview. This is our team. And are you seeing it in presentation mode, or do you see it in a multiple screens where it says next slide? Is that what you see?
It does say next slide. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we see two screens, but
Let me
the
see if
major
I
one is in
can.
the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if there we go. Okay.
There
So
we
so this is our team. As you can see, we have a very new team. You can see the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individuals are all hired within the last year and a half in joining our district. But we've hit a groove. We've done quite well. And there are 2 new college presidents. So I want to emphasize those individuals first. You'll see Dr. Tamil Gilkerson here, new president of Evergreen Valley College. She started in January of 2020. Next to her is Dr. Rowena Tomine, who started back in November of 2019. And so these are the 2 new leaders of the colleges, and I wanted to make sure that I got a chance to at least give some visibility to them to bury us. And again, we have a fine team focused on serving the district community. Very quick overview of the facts. We serve about 30,000 students, or just under 30,000, or just over 29,000 students. You can see some of the ethnic and gender diversity. We're considered Hispanic serving institution, in addition to being an Asian serving institution, as laid out by the criteria of the United States government. So that qualifies us for a number of types of grants and loans. And in particular, we have the majority of our students who classify as low income. And again, going back to COVID, we've surveyed our students. We've seen some of their challenges, and we see that as a result of COVID, we had a number of students who are not able to continue their education, even though we've done all that we can with CARES Act funding and the like, again, and also support from our boards of trustees to make sure that we have everything that we need. But given the fact that folks have lost income, they're still managing food and housing insecurity, as well as additional family responsibilities. Many of the students that we serve are parents themselves and finding themselves working in a remote environment, helping their child get past that at home. So some very challenging times indeed. Some of the results of on our employment of our students, you can see that here, about 55% of our students say that their employment status has been decreased. And that's over half of our students who have lost form of income. I would say is the most important thing to point out there. And in the last 30 days, what is to be true about your particular circumstance was asked of about 843 San Jose Evergreen and Evergreen Valley College students. And their biggest concern was they didn't have enough money to get food, in terms of 45% of the students who answered the survey. And they couldn't afford a balanced meal at just under 40%. This grid here, I want to point out that the 2 biggest things that were impacted amongst our students were that they could not concentrate on school, and they've not been able to take care of their family members while going to school as a result of some of the challenge as to why they may have backed out of school. This chart here, I want to share the 2 biggest things that they miss from not having in-person support services, academic counseling, and also access to the library. Another result of the survey I want to point out to you all has to do with how prepared they were for an online environment. We had 33% of our students that had no experience with online classes. And we were basically put into a remote learning as well as a remote work environment by 3rd week of March. And we remain in that space. And we will also be working remotely as well as offering online courses through the spring of 2021. So that is our reality of learning as it faces us today. We've also asked students what were their plans for the fall. And the biggest answer they had here was 71% of them said they definitely plan to enroll at more classes at the community college. And that's 77%. So we wanted to, highlight the fact that people intended to utilize the community colleges as a way to continue to move forward their educational goals, or to offset some of the job training and skill training that they need, especially in post-COVID or in the recovery phase of this pandemic. And 85% of all California community colleges reported a decrease in enrollment of 12%. Our decrease ended up being about 8% total. And then I also wanted to point out to everyone that our two schools, due to, again, the great leadership of our board members, including Trustee Nassau, we are amongst the most diverse campuses in the country. At number 4 and number 5 out of 1,200 two-year public institutions right here in Silicon Valley in terms of our diversity in our faculty. Again, of 1,200 schools done by a national survey. And so I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. And then here are some of the impacts to our employees. Feeling anxious and nervous. So mental health has been a very major concern amongst our employees as well as our students. We've done a lot for our employees to make sure that they feel safe, first and foremost. They've been given frequent updates, flexible work hours, and they also have, of course, remote access to everything that they will need. And here's a quote that I had from Barack Obama about instilling hope, and that it is not just a sense of blind optimism, but it is a way for us to think about, despite all the evidence that may be against us, to do something better, and that there's better things that await us if we show the courage. And so I wanted to share that. And with that, I am going to now very quickly unshare my screen. Let's see how fast I can do this. I don't want to take too much time. And then I'm gonna actually just read some highlights of where we are with Milpitas. And I want to go back and just share, Milpitas extension was something that we opened back in 2000. Let's say it was 16. And it started with, again, as I mentioned earlier, a vision of creating an entire educational ecosystem in partnership with the Milpitas Unified School District. We ended up creating a kind of a land lease where we built the building and the Milpitas Unified owns the land. And so it is a deeply embedded partnership in the structure, but certainly in the programming. And creating a way for the community to earn units, dual enrollment, impacting the high school students. And I'm going to share with you that some of the stats on the Milpitas program altogether, just in the 4 years that it's been there, before I transition to sharing a little bit about Measure I and Measure J. But currently our dual enrollment program, where high school students can earn units toward their high school diploma, as well as earn college credit. And of course, give them the confidence that they can achieve at college level work. We have a cohort of 30 students. There are about 2 SJCC courses offered per semester that also include the IGETC pathway. Those are required courses that need to be taken towards your college degree and earning associate's degree or being able to transfer. 24 plus units are earned by high school graduation. 80% of the students in the program are considered, we call them opportunity students. They're either low income, English is their second language, or they've been underrepresented in higher education. So by design, we're trying to serve students that typically had not gone to college, or that was not necessarily the goal. And so 450 Milpitas high school students attended at least one San Jose City College course this summer. And again, these are some of the positive outcomes of having this partnership with Milpitas Unified. About 112 Milpitas high school students graduated high school in 2019 with transferable units on their transcript. 165 Milpitas high school students graduated high school in 2020, just this past spring, with transferable units on their transcript. So it increased from 112 to 165, and we'll be looking forward to serving even more next year. But that's 25% of the total graduating class now finishing high school with college units on their transcript. The average number of units completed by each student, there's 6, and the most students actually taken by any one student is 27 units. And that's, as you know, is a huge accomplishment, when you're finishing, and this is all free, by the way. So once they finish that, they're then able to move forward as a sophomore, standing or just finish out their units at a lower cost, and also shorten their time to degree because they're still just finishing as a high school senior. And so we're really excited about, some of these preliminary results. And outside of the educational benefits, there's also a huge community benefit of having this site there, because we open it up for community activities at literally little to no extra cost in the evenings as well as on the weekend to have access to that facility. So a tremendous community benefit for that partnership. And so I want to make sure I shared that with you all this evening, as it is something that we're extremely proud of. And I'm going to share my screen one more time to bring up with you the presentation that I want to run over really quickly. Again, I appreciate your time and attention. I know you all have a long meeting, but I'm going to start the slideshow here at the beginning. Just click. All right. And so first I'll just sort of set the stage by letting folks know we've been very thankful and appreciative of the community for supporting our measures over the years. Many of you may remember going back to Measure I in 1999. We had another measure, 2006, 2010, and then we've had Measure X in 2016. And some folks have said, well, why, why another measure right now at this time? And the answer simply is, at this point in time, it just makes sense to have the resources that we need in order to support the community out of this pandemic. And Measure X, the dollars, as you all know, doing anything in Silicon Valley, it's become extremely expensive. The dollars have been accounted for, and the projects are in the queue to continue to modernize our facilities and continue to work our way to making sure that we have the appropriate technology to really support our students' needs. And so I wanted to make sure that, I said that in the beginning as we talk about why, our district felt under leadership of our board and myself that this was important to make sure that we did it. And again, this is to make sure that education stays affordable. It's to make sure that we have the appropriate job training, and in particular in the fields that are needed as we get out of the recovery. Let me give you an example. Evergreen Valley College, for instance, is responsible for over 1,400 nurses in a very short period of time. That college opened its doors in 1975. And those nurses are working right here locally. And there are a number of other healthcare professions. San Jose City College, for instance, is medical assisting, EMT program. These are very deeply embedded programs in our city where our residents are able to earn high wages and remain in the Valley without getting priced out and not be a part of the tech community, for instance, or maybe they were never interested in that. And so what we're looking for is recovery out of this. And as I mentioned, Measure I and Measure J, the difference between the two measures, Measure I is a partial tax, which will be used to support student basic needs, as I covered before, with housing and food insecurity. We're able to use those as discretionable funds, and rather unrestricted funds to be able to support our students in need. Measure J is brick and mortar or technology. We're able to continue building and modernizing facilities and maintaining a district that is actually 100 years old. San Jose City College turns 100 in the year 2021. And so there's lots of infrastructure to continue to modernize to make our district sparkle and for everyone to have a lot of pride in the great work and the folks that we've educated over those 100 years. And I want to now switch over here. Again, we're going to facilitate college transfer, making sure that our high school students get a jump start on earning college credit. Again, by boosting dual enrollment in programs such as with Milpitas Unified. We also have a very strong presence with Eastside Unified High School District that we need to continue to build up. And again, under the direction of the board, we have the ability to do that. And we also want to make sure that we continue, saving families money. The cost of education is increasing especially even amongst the Cal State and the UC system right here in Silicon Valley, especially, but certainly in the entire state, where attending a state school was actually free of fees up until 1985. You could attend UC or CSU or California Community College free of fees prior to 1985. So a lot has changed since then in terms of the cost of education. We talked a little bit about
Dr. Breland, I'm going to have to ask you to stop doing that, because we like to present both sides if we're going to present one side. So I've given you a chance to really kind of give an overview of everything, and we appreciate that you've done that, but we don't have anybody to counter that. So I'm going to ask you to go back.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm explaining as to why we have the ballot
Yes.
on there. I thought I was in, anyway. So, okay. So I will go here to the end. Thank you. I apologize if I've violated any of your rules. But after hours, we are able to, share this information. So that's essentially what I wanted to do. And I guess I'll leave you then with that thought, and thank you all, for your support as community organization. I remember visiting with you all. It's been over a year now. And I've had a lot of respect for the way that you've run your business and you keep tabs on what's happening in your community as an advisory group. So,
and Rudy
thank you.
Nassau he comes periodically and keeps us informed, and he made sure that, you were with us tonight. So, and I just think it's wonderful having that Milpitas, place now is really exciting, because it's right here in our area close by. And of course, I really heavily believe in community colleges. My 3 kids went to community college, as well as my husband and I, and then went on to 4-year colleges after that. So, they really are invaluable. So we appreciate your coming tonight and presenting your slides and everything. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much, Linda.
Okay. All right. Mike, are you still with us? Mike is just a guy that loves history and the history of the Valley. So I guess you kind of do this as a hobby, but, he has a wealth of information. Sita introduced us to him, and we invited him to come tonight and make a presentation. So you have the rest of the evening to tell us whatever you'd like, Mike. This is Mike Monroe. You're muted. You're muted. Gotta unmute. There we go.
Okay. So thank you, Linda. I appreciate the invitation to tell a couple of stories. The best way to start is to explain that many years ago, when I was a young adolescent in Concord, Massachusetts, I had the opportunity to walk around Walden Pond and visit the homes of Emerson and Thoreau and walk across the Old North Bridge, and that sense of history has been with me ever since. So when my wife and I moved to Gilroy upon our marriage, 1986, I said, I like the area, and I'm going to try to learn as much as I can about it in the context of natural history and, of course, the human history with Native Americans and all the things that happened with the missions and the explorations that came up, by the Americans and whatnot. But I want to start off by sharing one thing that Mike Flower, I've met Mike a couple of times involved with open space. Last week, it was announced that the Open Space Authority, along with Peninsula Open Space, purchased a pretty big ranch in Coyote Valley called the Tilton Ranch. It's 1,800 plus acres. And Coyote Valley, south of San Jose proper, has been a big conservation issue and goal for many, many years. So it's a big deal. They're going to be able to link a couple of open space preserves together. And so a very large announcement last week in north of Morgan Hill. I have lots of stories, so I try to make sure that I don't stray too far, because I do have a tendency to be scattered. But I wanted to share a story that I find particularly interesting, and it involves an individual that made Morgan Hill his home for about 35 years. His name was Charles Kellogg, and I'm not sure if anybody has ever heard of Charles Kellogg, the bird singer. Has anybody heard of this fellow? Okay. He is the step down in terms of the echelon of conservationists, environmentalists. He palled around with John Muir and John Burroughs. So his name recognition, unfortunately, has been diminished over the years because he doesn't have the same standing as like a John Muir type person. However, he was very instrumental in the Save the Redwoods League. And he has a unique story. So I'm going to show you a picture. I'm not sure if it's clear enough, but can people see this picture of Charles? Maybe not.
Yeah, we can see
Okay.
it. Yeah, we can see it.
Charles was a international vaudeville star. He made his living by giving presentations about the natural environment, and he used his voice. He was able to sing bird calls, and back in the day, that was quite the thing. People were very entertained by an individual who could mimic bird voices. So his marketing, okay, this is him, he's self-promoting. He claimed that his vocal cords were similar to a bird's, and that's what allowed him to do all these unusual sounds. So much so that he made a living by touring the country doing bird songs and explaining about the need for us to respect nature in general. But back in the day, remember, people used to wear lots of hats, especially women, and they were made with bird feathers. So there's a huge effort back in his time to stop people from just shooting birds for their feathers and for their wardrobes. Charles used his voice to become a recording star with RCA Victor. And I have his, I'm kind of over the top with this fellow. So I have records, the 78 records, but he was a star, and he would perform with orchestras and opera stars. That was the thing. However, he decided in 1913 to actually reside in California. Why in the heck did he move to Morgan Hill? I don't know for sure. And he was recently remarried. So he and his wife decided to purchase some land in Morgan Hill. And he built a cabin on top of the ridge line to the east of Morgan Hill. So I don't know, has anybody here been to Harvey Bear Park? Is that okay? So the exit of the freeway is Tennant Avenue. If you were to exit at Tennant and head east, you'd run right into the ridge line. He built a cabin, and it was kind of his Thoreau moment, his Henry David Thoreau moment. He hand built it. He put a water system in, and from there he again started talking about his adventures of in the wild, and how the animals would come over to him, and it's quite the self-promotion, okay? The biggest aspect of the story is that in 1917, he recognized, along with other people, that the redwoods were being felled, timbered at an increasingly rapid rate. So the redwoods at Mount Madonna, the redwoods along the Santa Cruz Mountains had mostly been logged. There's only between 4 and 5% of the original redwood forest in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It was pretty extensive. So what was happening is that the redwoods further north, Humboldt County, Del Norte County, up to Eureka, were all subject to increased logging, and they were building a highway. So if you've driven up Garberville, up into Humboldt, that highway, a very rudimentary highway, was being built. So everybody recognized that, well, with transportation, they could even increase the cut up there. Charles took on a very novel project, and he decided, again, this is his marketing, that he was going to go out to the rest of the country and talk about saving the redwoods. And what he did is he picked up, actually he was donated a truck and chassis. He drove it up to Humboldt, and there was a huge down redwood tree. And he cut a section of that tree, he hollowed it out and put it on the chassis of this truck. It was one of the very first motorhomes in the world. So I got a picture of it. I'm not sure if I can keep the light off this thing. But he made a camper out of a redwood log. And he drove it around the country. So this is 1917, 1918, World War I. He's talking about saving the redwoods, as well as he's out there promoting the sale of war bonds. So he was also helping himself, because he's out there promoting his, I would say his entertainment career a little bit. So he was a multi-purpose guy. That vehicle is now sitting at the visitor center at Humboldt State Redwoods. And he doesn't get the credit, unfortunately. He was well known in his time, but like most, I don't know, I'm sure you know, Linda, that there are people who have done amazing things, but as time goes by, their reputations are just kind of forgotten. So my task is to keep his memory alive. Redwoods, I mean, unfortunately, I was very involved at Big Basin, and we owned a grove, not owned it, we had a grove of trees which are completely burned down. So it's kind of tragic in a way, but we know that they'll come back. So I've been doing quite a bit of work with Santa Clara County Parks, talking about the health of the redwood forest at Mount Madonna. So Mount Madonna is a county park close to our house, and what can we do to recognize the threats, the challenges that we have posed by the climate change and the condition of the forest. So with that, I'll stop. There's lots of questions I'm sure you might have, but I can speak to a variety of things in terms of Southern Santa Clara County history. So would there be any questions? Or I'll tell you more stories.
Okay. Stories are good.
Yeah.
Linda,
Anybody have a question?
Linda,
Dick?
Dick Sattler, just a comment. I want to thank you, Mr. Monroe. Very fascinating. I know open space trustee is Mike Flahar, so I'm sure you have a lot in common. I feel like Mr. Kellogg was ahead of his time in the environment. I do want to take the time also to thank Dr. Breland for that wonderful presentation also. I really enjoyed both, and our future is our children. We need education right now in the environment. We got to save it. So climate change, all that. I'm addressing those issues right now with forest fires and everything else, and water erosion and water conservation. So thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Anybody with a question? Sita, do you have a question?
Is Sita there?
Yep, Sita's here. You're on mute, Sita.
She should probably say how we met.
Yes, you might. You're on, okay, unmute.
Mute. Here
Yeah,
we
there you go.
go.
There she is.
Okay, here I am. Mike, it's been a long time coming that you were able to join us at BCAC, but thank you very much. I was at a symposium where a lot of farmers in Santa Clara Valley and a lot of other visitors were meeting in Saratoga, at the Saratoga Library, I believe, wasn't it, Mike?
Yes.
And I was sitting next to Mike, and he and a couple of the other farmers were telling stories, and I was just absolutely fascinated with the chit chat going on behind me. That I, in addition to the speakers, of course. So yes, thank you very much for joining us. He's got many stories to tell.
So that event, Sita, was Charlie Olson. So for those of you who remember Olson's Cherries in Sunnyvale,
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Olson was the speaker, and his daughter was there. Subsequently, the cherry stand in Sunnyvale was closed and sold. But I was sitting with Andy Mariani, who has an orchard, one of the very few remaining active orchards in Santa Clara County. And Charlie Olson and Andy Mariani are close friends. And it was really a treat to be there. My business was called the Valley of Heart's Delight. And it were referring to all the orchards and vineyards that we'd have down here. We had an agritourism business, so we would take people out to parks or wineries or the very last one I did was a big olive orchard. Unfortunately, COVID forced our hand. You can't do tours like that in minibuses anymore. So I basically stopped it. Didn't want to really, but it was just not economical to keep vehicles with insurances and stuff like that. So, but I could find other ways to cause trouble. So anyhow, I'm very fortunate. So we've had wonderful experiences in South County, and we love living down here. So.
Well, it's a shame about the forest, Big Basin, and all those things that burned down. Oh, that was just heartbreaking. So.
Yeah, I mean, fire is an essential component to, forest health.
Yeah.
Native Americans did prescribe burns. Unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of different issues that affect the health of redwood forest. It could be the drought conditions. It could be high heat conditions, wind. So from Mount Madonna has not had a fire in the past 70 years. So the buildup on the forest floor it would be catastrophic. They're trying to do some things, but very expensive. People don't like prescribed burns. It's a very challenging time. So thank you very much for your time, everybody.
That was really interesting.
Do you have more stories?
Well, sure. But you know,
We have time for another story. Yeah.
okay, well, I'll give you one that's kind of on the burner, and Mike Flower knows about this one. So Native Americans in our area in Gilroy, the local tribal group is called the Amamutsan, and they are very engaged right now with a project at the very southern end of Santa Clara County. It's a development that would mean a sand quarry, a quarry right along Highway 101, just before you get to the Pajaro River. And there's going to be a fight because there's a lot of environmental issues there. But the Native Americans, the Amamutsan, consider that area to be a sacred area, sacred sites. And it's true. They have had documentation where their spiritual, they call them shamans, did have some tradition rituals out there. So there's just very interesting back and forth. The County of Santa Clara has received a proposal for development. The EIR has not yet come out. Very interesting though, it's a big parcel. So just like the Coyote Valley purchase that just happened, there's lots of environmental money sitting on the sidelines waiting to scoop this thing up. But I think it's over 8,000 acres. It's a huge property, mostly undeveloped. And it's the very southern edge of Santa Clara County. So it's a good story.
Then, if I may, Mr. Monroe, that's called the Sergeant's Ranch. I've been there and seen what you're talking about.
Yeah, the Sergeant Ranch. You know, there's so many different ways to go on this, but I recently wrote an article kind of pushing back on the Amamutsan a little bit. They have in print and in their website been using a number of about 20,000 Native American deaths at San Juan Bautista. And I wrote an article saying that that was way over the top. And I did the research, and it's about 5,000 and 5,200. So I wrote them and said, you need to show me how you came up with that number, because the total number of Native American deaths from the mission period, probably about 80 or 90,000 throughout California. And to have one mission with that total of 20,000, it didn't make sense to me. So I did the research, and they're receptive to it. It's just that a lot of times things get published or said, and it's like, well, where did that come from? You know? So anyhow, that's sometimes I do that. I kind of go out there to double check the history of it. So I think I'm seeing some people on the sidelines that want to say some things. No?
Hi, did you have something? No?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
curious. Mr. Monroe, it sounds interesting, your perspective of fact-based assessment of the claims that the tribe is making with respect to opposition in developing the land. But I wanted to follow up on the one that you brought up earlier, and that is there's apparently a sympathy on your part with better forest management in terms of controlled burns, which have been, I think, a source for much of the challenge that we faced here in the last few months with massive numbers of fires that are larger than we would have otherwise had to face had there been more active management. And I just wanted to get your thought on that.
So prescribed burns. The issue is very difficult because there's lots of infrastructure that are close or actually in park areas. So at Mount Madonna, there's a fair number of residences in the local the local area, and they're very concerned, that a prescribed burn could get out of hand. Additionally, in terms of the science, we know that the fire season has elongated, and so Native American practice would have a intentional burn maybe in October, because the weather would be starting to cool down before the rains hit. So it's really, we're in a conundrum, because if we have guys fighting fires all over the state through the month of October, when do we have resources to actually do prescribed burns? What's the best time to do that, and where do we get the resources? A friend of mine suggests that we buy more air tankers and do the fire retardant drops. I can't say enough about the skill of the pilots of those planes flying through the smoke and stuff. It's just amazing what they can do. But that is so dangerous. Those firestorms are just so I can't imagine the danger involved with flying those planes around at low altitude. So Mount Madonna specifically has eucalyptus, which was intentionally planted. Eucalyptus is a torch when it starts on fire. They have to remove them. The trees are huge, and the amounts of money are substantial. They have been starting to do fire breaks. But the issue is, how big is a fire break? What's a defensible space? If the fires are, the embers are jumping all over the place, how much forest do you have to clear to make a fire break? They've been doing some removal of trees. The last topic I'll talk about, because I just wrote something on this, is a disease called sudden oak death. And I'm sure the Water District is well aware of this, but sudden oak death is like COVID. It is here, and we're not going to be able to stop it, really. We don't have a vaccine yet for sudden oak death. The tan oak trees are particularly susceptible to the disease, and either we have to remove them or have them burn. As over 100 million trees in California have succumbed to different diseases. Sudden oak death is one, the beetles up in the Sierras. This is not an easy fix. So if we all go out there with our rakes and brooms, we can clean the forest floor, right? So anyhow, I'm on my soapbox, guys. No, there's no easy answer, and it's very expensive. So
I think the word you were looking for with regard to the airdrop was simplistic. How many?
Yeah.
Where are you gonna land all those planes?
Yeah, we want easy answers, and there's just not there. And that's the reality of it. For me at Big Basin, it was not only our grove, but hundreds and hundreds of people have donated money over almost 120 years to basically donate money so that they could protect redwoods. And 99% of the forest was burned to one degree or the other. I haven't seen our grove. I've seen maps, and it's pretty, my wife says, when can we go see it? I said, well, it's all safety issue now. You don't want the tree falling on you. So,
well, Mike, if you could amplify on that a bit, because one of the things you brought up earlier was that fire is a natural part of the forest effort. And I understand that the redwoods have a reproductive system tied to burns, and that they're relatively invulnerable to forest fires.
Ty, you're right. The tree itself has very thick bark. The resin is unlike a eucalyptus, is not pronounced. So when a eucalyptus catches fire, it has so much resin in it, it just shoots up. Redwoods don't have that. Redwoods have a very tall canopy. In other words, the branching goes pretty high up in the air. So the issue, like at Mount Madonna, is that if there's a lot of understory growth, there could be ladder fires. Mount Madonna was completely logged. There's only 2 redwood trees considered to be over 200 years old in the park. That means it's a very young forest, lots of crowding. So one of the answers is to go in and thin the forest. Again, very expensive, although the lumber companies would be more than happy to help log some of the younger trees out. So the fire danger is very pronounced at a place like Mount Madonna. Big Basin had a lot of old growth, but again, most of the recent purchases. So our grove at Big Basin was second growth. All the old trees, the oldest trees had already been spoken for by other prior donations. So when you would go out to our section, again, crowded, young trees, lots of litter on the floor in terms of all the branches and leaf litter and stuff like that. So I don't know. Fire is a natural component. They've done a lot of historical background studies on how much the Native Americans did burn the redwood forest. It's very interesting to try to figure that part out. I have my own my own opinions on that, but the biggest thing that Native Americans wanted to do was gather acorns, and the redwood forest happens to have the tan oak tree as a co-dominant tree in there. Native Americans loved tan oak acorns, and they would sometimes burn so that they could easily access the tan oak acorns. And it doesn't make much sense because, you think of fog and the moisture content in the redwood forest, but yeah, they'd do some burns up there. Anyhow, I love to talk.
Could I just make a comment? I don't know, is my microphone on?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. There are wonderful organizations, whether it's Open Space, Ridge Trail, Sempervirens group, etc. And I make it a point when it's someone's birthday or in memory of someone, I quite often make donations, particularly to the Sempervirens organization, because they are involved in Big Basin primarily. And you would probably know about that, Mike.
Right. So when we donated money for trees, Sempervirens Fund would collect the money. The grove of trees is actually within California State Park at Big Basin. Sempervirens would then use the money to purchase new lands, so expanding the parks. So, and they've been doing that for almost 120 years. So Big Basin, 1902 was the very first state park, and people love the redwoods. I'm a Santa Clara graduate, so Father Kenna. So I was a school of business, and Father Kenna at Kenna Hall was instrumental in going to the state legislature and very impassioned speech, and the state of California went ahead and purchased the land. So Santa Clara University was a big player, Stanford University as well, San Jose State. Andrew P. Hill was the chief motivator. I think I'd like to wrap up by switching a subject just for a brief instant, because we're not that far from Thanksgiving, right? So So being from Massachusetts just for a few years, I went to Plymouth Rock at Cape Cod. So I love to talk about anniversaries. So 400 years ago, this November, the Pilgrims came across on the Mayflower. And if it wasn't for the Native Americans, they probably would not have been able to continue that little colony because they were desperate. That first year was very tough on them. 250 years ago, 1770, the very first Spanish explorers left Monterey, came up, now it's kind of through Prunedale, but they came across to San Juan Bautista and up through Gilroy Valley. And they were the very first explorers to recognize the Golden Gate. So I do all these articles and talks about anniversaries because it's kind of cool. It's saying 250 years ago. It doesn't seem that long ago. But how many things have changed since Governor Vegas came up with his group and found the Golden Gate. It's amazing. So anyhow, stories galore. I should start another business.
Yeah.
You are in the business.
No,
we're gonna wrap up. Thank you so much, Mike. You really were enjoyable to listen to, and it's delightful to have, something interesting other than talking about the virus and the lockdowns and all the other things and the fires. So
yeah,
enjoyed your talk tonight. I have
Very
three announcements. I have three announcements to make. Our board meeting will be at Berryessa School District Board next Monday. Dr. Fuentes has allowed us to come in at 5 o'clock. And so we'll have our meeting there like we did last month. The second announcement is Assemblyman Kenson Chu's Community Hero Awards was held last week. And our representative was Ron Appleby. And so he did get a little trophy, I guess you call it, yeah. So, and we drove through the college area to get in Milpitas. We had to go over there to the Evergreen or to the Milpitas college area. So I did get to drive behind him, and we had our picture taken with Kenson, and Ron brought his wife and two of his grandkids. So we had a little bit of a ceremony anyway. So that was very nice. And then in closing the meeting tonight, I'd like to close in honor of one of our founding members, Frank Kadlacek, died in August, I think, back a little ways. But he and Bill Hughes were the founders of BCAC back in 1973. So he just passed away, right? So thank everyone for coming tonight. Appreciate your time and all the information that we got tonight was very interesting, and it's a lot of fun. And it's at least nice to see people.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been locked in the house for a couple of days. I've been talking to the birds outside. That's my big entertainment. So anyway, thanks very much. And thanks Eric for all you've done to get this set up and recorded. It is recorded in case you want to tell your friends to watch. So, all right. All right.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
End the
Thank you,
meeting.
everybody.
Good
Take
night.
care.